that Google plus all the humans that connect to it are one giant cybernetic collective. This is also true of Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all these social networks. This was futile.
Bless up, brothers and sisters. Thanks for joining me for Fuel for Thought number 11, Like a Puppet on a String. As you saw from that short opening clip with Elon, he was on the Joe Rogan Experience last month, and it's rather insightful to say the least. But as he extrapolated on in that short clip, the emergence of artificial intelligence and how we collectively as society feed into it and allow it to sort of draw the parameters of what we're all about as a species. Literally everything that we do, whether we like, we comment, the things that we look at, the things that we buy, anything that we do online is data mined and cataloged, and that information is fed into that giant cybernetic, so to speak, hive mind mentality. Lots of stuff out there if you look for it. Know what happened recently in science? Crazy fucking crazy. We're talking about being able to hook our brains to computer systems, to the interwebs specifically. What they did recently is they took 3 individuals, put on some brain apparatuses. 2 of the people were sending information, the third was receiving the information. And what they were doing, again, they were not in the same area, they were apart by distance and whatnot. 2 of them were sending information to the third. The third was ascertaining what to do with that information. And what the 3 of them were doing was playing a game of Tetris. So you had 2 people cognizant of what the shapes were, and they were trying to tell the third person which way they should send it. So the third person, without even seeing anything, was playing the game and putting things into shape. So that is kind of cool and has a lot of really interesting aspects to people with disabilities and mobility issues and whatnot. But the actual scary part about it is, like Elon was talking about in the cybernetic hive mind, is we are developing that hive mind mentality, the herd mentality. So I digress. We're not going to go off on a tangent on that today. But again, I talk about like a puppet on a string. Now, there's 2 things that I'm going to extrapolate on in a moment that have been in history forever that are really, really good tools by the powers that be, those in charge, the overseers of the rest of us lemmings here on the space rock, that allow them to sort of agitate us at their will. Now, before I get on to that, I want to talk about daylight savings time is going to be rearing its ugly head once again. We're going to fall back on November the 3rd. So I've had conversations with friends recently at the stupidity of this, and it seems like every year we have these conversations. Now, most of you know why they initiated daylight savings times during the Second World War. Energy, fuel consumption, saving, just, sort of getting everyone to sort of tighten up on using resources, so to speak. Now, if memory serves me correctly, that war ended in 1945. And here we are, in 2018, utilizing daylight savings times. To what end? Really, honestly, to what end? All it does, and again, this is in conversations with friends, I've said, in my opinion, all it does is twice a year, it agitates the general population as a whole. It has effect on productivity, it has an effect on people, on their circadian rhythms. It does no good. But here we are, 70 plus years later, like fucking lemmings, twice a year, government goes, hey, gotta spring your clock ahead an hour, or hey, you gotta fall back an hour. To what end? There is no end. They've dangled the carrot and said, well, we're gonna push back the times. Some people have even talked about, some countries have talked about getting rid of it altogether. In North America, there's certain parts of this continent that are not impacted by daylight savings time. So again, all they're doing is conditioning multi-generations to twice a year change their clocks, and subsequently become agitated by that. It's almost like, a few thousand years ago in some little village, you went out once a year and you picked one of the people in your village and you killed them to appease the sun god. Well, time goes on, you learn that killing that person doesn't appease the sun god, yet you continue the fucking tradition. Doesn't make any sense. But again, just another example of how easily manipulated the lemmings on the space rock are. Now, the two topics that I was talking about, that for eons have been used to agitate you and I, the general population. And those two topics are politics and sports. I could extrapolate on that and go politics, religion, and sports, but religion is its own cup of tea, and sports and politics, well, you know what? Politics and religion, I would think, would fall into the same kind of category, so to speak, whereas sports is sort of a external thing that they utilize to instill some sort of, obsession within the quote-unquote fan. There's some areas of the world where if you're wearing the wrong sports jersey or whatever, you could fucking get your shit jacked. Or some parts of the U.S. where the sport of football, and if you like football, that's cool, but the sport of football is almost as fucking religious as God is. It's crazy. Hey, when you got a high school football game and you can put 70,000 people in the stadium and watch high school football, the folks there like their football. But I digress. These topics are so easily manipulated by the powers that be to keep people at odds with one another. With politics specifically, you do realize that the backroom goings on between the different parties or political factions, or they're all back in the room, high five each other, slapping each other in the back, making business deals, and just doing what's good for them. They're not doing what's good for you and I. They never have. So you have that going on. You look at religion, and that is a powder keg. And no offense to anybody with, whatever your religious aspersions may be, but again, throughout history and to this current day, religion is used to just agitate large numbers of people, and any degree of sort of trying to cohabitate this planet and sort of get along, that goes out the fucking window when you throw religion in the equation. But politics, religion, and sports. I've got nothing against sports, but you look back to the Roman Empire and how the decline of the Roman Empire specifically mirrors the decline of the American Empire, right? Check out history, man. There's just way too many things that sort of line up with both those timetables in history. And who copied whose architecture? Keep that in mind. Anyways, it's far too easy to keep everyone agitated. Hey, you keep them ill, you keep them agitated, and you keep them sort of drugged up on prescription drugs, because North America is the most prescribed continent on the planet. Go figure, eh? Just a myriad of different things to keep the puppets on the strings dancing to the tune that you want them to. So I don't want to get too ranty. I don't want to get too ravey. I just want to stop by and say, hey, how you doing? Just some food for thought when you're online and you're interacting, because I see lots of people that they're like, oh, such and such political party, blah, 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 or you give these people a chance, blah, 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 blah. And we see time and time again throughout history that they just sort of flip-flop it back and forth. Different political factions take turns. In the U.S., the Dems and the Republics, they almost have a schedule where it's like, okay, you hold it for 2 terms, we'll hold it for 1 term, then we'll hold it for 2 terms, and you get to hold it for 1 term, and they go back and forth, and nothing is rectified, except for everybody on the ground, you and me's, we're getting agitated. The same thing has been instilled into the cannabis movement and culture here in Canada. Decades and decades of activism, and I live in the province of British Columbia, which has been known as the cannabis capital of Canada. BC Bud has been world renowned for decades now, And yeah, the government came in and said, yeah, this is what we're going to do. And they just sort of shoehorned in, and they got the faction of the cannabis community to start being agitated amongst itself. And they got the split happening. And then, as we've seen over the last couple of years, you've got people that were longtime members of the cannabis community fighting for rights, for true cannabis freedom, for patients' rights, and they end up going and working for the government entities. History repeats itself. So, rant and rave, Doobie's got a blaze. All right, brothers and sisters. Oh, see that? Filter came out in my mouth. Fucking technical difficulties are happening all over the place. Wow, what are you gonna do, right? Well, you just roll with the punches and fucking keep on growing. So remember, pay it forward when you can. Do those random acts of kindness. We put people over profits. And as you well know, here at the farm, we are cultivating kindness, and you should too. Thanks for spending a few minutes with me today. I'll see you in the next video. Peace, love, and blessings.